Thank you for joining us for this first webinar. It's going to be on the What's New in SolidWorks 2011. This segment is going to be an in-depth look at drawings and part features. The first thing we want to take a look at are the drawing enhancements. We want to take a look at the dimension changes, the options in your system, options in your document properties, the table improvements, annotations, and we'll take a look at some of the other kind of random drawing enhancements as well. The first thing we want to take a look at are the options that we have inside of our 2011 for drawings. The first thing we want to take a look at is the display scale for orthogonal views. If you go to your Tools Options, your Document Properties, take a look at the View Labels section, and then for the orthographic views, you have the option in there for Show Label if the view scale differs from the sheet scale, and then you have the label options at the bottom there. On the right hand side here we just show how the scale is going to be displayed and then how it's not displayed on the bottom. For default sheet format locations, they have changed a little bit. They're actually the same as what Vista is, but it's worth mentioning. In XP, Windows XP, they show right there in your C documents and settings and the entire path there for where your default sheet format locations are. And then we have the Windows 7 and Windows Vista. We are going to have this video on our website as well as the PowerPoint presentation, so if you don't have to jot this down right now, you can always download it and take a look at it later. The next thing we want to look at is the Great Britain drafting standard. They have additional requirements that are supported now in your tools options, document properties, and dimensions. They have different options for arrow length, arrows change from hollow to solid, extension line changes, and so forth. Just want to show you that there. For some of the ANSI drafting standards, some of the changes are first with datum features. Now you can add datum, the datum leader to dimensions. If you look at the top there, depending on how your dimensions are dimensioned inside of your drawing view, you can either have the datum feature off the extension line, if you have your dimension in the center there, or if your dimension is offset outside of your extension lines, then you can have the datum feature going right to the center of the of where your dimension normally is there. For GD&T, you have an all-over leader is now available, and for some of the new material conditions and symbols, you have diameter and square symbols when you apply flatness tolerance. You can also use the unequally disposed profile symbol in your geometric tolerance symbols. Last but not least, you have independency and continuous feature symbols that you can use now inside of your GD&T frames. Next thing we want to look at are some dimension improvements in 2011. We're going to see the alignment and auto arrange options for your dimensions. We'll see how to chamfer, how to show the dual dimensions on your chamfers. Then we'll also take a look at some dimension units themselves. Let's start by taking a look at some of our dimensions here. If we look at this drawing view up on the upper left here, we have some dimensions all kind of running into each other at the moment. One of the new enhancements in 2011 for drawings is if you want to grab a group of dimensions, you can actually change the spacing on them. And you have this new line on the dimension palette to change the spacing itself. So you can auto arrange the dimensions, have them evenly spaced, linear or radially. You can have them collinear, you can have them staggered, top, bottom, left, right, justified. We're just going to hit the auto arrange dimensions. As we do that, you can see that it made a pretty nice arrangement of the dimensions itself. If you look at the bottom, we can also just change the spacing between the dimensions just by hitting the scroll wheel here. Let's take a look at that again. We go with these dimensions at the top. Let's auto arrange them, and this time we'll say that's okay. It makes it look pretty nice, and it's pretty quick and easy to do that. Let's add in another dimension here. Let's add in a chamfer dimension. Let's put that in. One of the new enhancements for our chamfer dimensions is to actually add dual dimensions to it. If you hit the checkbox there, you can turn it on and show the different dimension. You can also change your style of your chamfer right here as well. An option that we have in 2011 for our dimensions is if we go to our Tools options, our Document Properties, and then the Dimensions, we have this option to show units of our dimensions now as well. So if I hit OK, you can see that all of these different dimensions are now in millimeters. Let's take a look at tables and annotations now. We'll start with some whole tables. In 2011, we have the ability to add in our dual dimensions inside of our whole tables, and we have some different sorting type of tools as well. So we'll be able to take a look at those. Next, you can now merge and unmerge cells inside of your tables, and we'll take a look at that. And last but not least, in this section, we're going to take a look at some note enhancements in 2011. On the same drawing, we want to take a look at our whole table as well. Typically, there aren't a lot of changes with whole tables, but this year they ended up actually creating quite a bit of changes here for us. And it'll make it a little easier to do certain functions inside of our SolidWorks. So we just want to create the whole table here, and then we want to take a look at the table itself that's created and then see some of the options that we have. First thing we can do, like we've always been able to do, we can combine the same sizes to clean it up a little bit. But one thing we haven't been able to do in years past is for the X and Y locations. We are showing just in millimeters right now, but what we want to do is show dual dimensions. We haven't been able to do that in years past, and now we can. What happens if you come down here and say we don't want a handful of these C tags right here? Let's go in and delete them. So it goes from C1 to C2, jumps up to C7, and finishes out the numbering scheme. Well, in years past, you would always have to go back and kind of recreate the table or edit the feature and just get rid of those tags. Now if you right click on the table, you have the option to renumber all of the tags or renumber the series of the tags. I'm just going to say all of them and let it do its thing. So you can now see that it goes C1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and all of the tags on the corresponding drawing view here also update. So that's a nice improvement over some of the manual work that you've had to do in years past. Looking a little further into tables, let's take a look at another enhancement that we have here. I just have some generic table here. What we can do now is if we highlight two cells and we want to merge them, right click and you have the option to merge cells. Something that's pretty basic but is pretty handy because we couldn't do that before. Let's take a look at a couple of note enhancements real quick. I just want to create a note. I'm just going to call this test. That's fine. Let's make that a little larger so we can see it. We have an option in here that we can fit text now. We weren't able to do that before, but now we have that option there. And another thing with notes that we can do that we couldn't do before, if you go to your Insert, Annotations, we have the option to perform a linear or a circular note pattern. So just looking at it, I'm going to select some sort of edge to reference. Then my note to pattern is going to be the test note that I just put there. You have a lot of the same options that you have with your circular pattern here. So if you just hit OK, you can see that our test is now in 4 different locations. Last but not least, we have some other drawing tools. This is for just the drawings here. We're going to take a look at the Hide Show Bodies option that we have inside of our drawings now. You can do that with assemblies. We'll also take a look at a couple of sheet metal improvements. One is the bounding box for sheet metal parts. you can actually add a sketch for the box, and it's going to allow you to add dimensions, and you can see the overall size for your flat pattern based on that. A little easier than what it has been in the past. We'll also see the cut list properties for your sheet metal part as well. And last, we'll take a look at the cosmetic threads, those improvements in 2011. If we take a look at this part here, this assembly, we have our standard views. Our isometric view is showing shaded with edges. What if you want to show some of the same colors from your model down here in your drawing views? Well, if you use hidden lines visible or removed, if you go over to your tools options, your document properties, and your detailing, you have the option under here for hidden lines removed and hidden lines visible in drawings to use your model color now. So if you hit OK, you can see the update here, and that will make it look a little nicer inside your drawing if you want to use the colors and actually view those. Another cool enhancement with 2011 is if you want to make a change to your 3D view here, you can now rotate it around. Actually, you could do this for forever, but if you wanted to change what it looks like, I can just kind of move it, and if you hit OK, it'll accept that view. In years past, it would always snap that back to its original position, but now you can actually make changes here, and that's really nice because you don't have to make a bunch of new views inside your model and then pull them into your drawing. You can just do it right here if you wanted to. Also, you can come in here and you could always do this before. If you right click, go to show hide, you can hide components. Same idea with multi-body parts. You can now hide bodies just by right clicking on them, going to show hide, and saying hide part, hide body. But same idea here as what we're seeing. Something new for assembly drawings is if we go to our tools options, document properties, and then over to our detailing, we have some new options for our auto insert on view creation. We've had a lot of this stuff for parts like center marks on fillets and holes and slots. We now have it for assemblies as well. So if you want to automatically pull in the center marks for your slots, fillets, or holes, you have that option right there. So let's take a look at that. Put in our standard 3 view, place it in there, and you can see some of our center marks up here, as well as down here for our fillets here. Looking at the cosmetic thread enhancements, I just have a simple part right here. What I'm going to do is just go to the insert pull down, annotations, and then cosmetic thread. I'm going to choose my my edge for the cosmetic thread and then choose some sort of text for my thread callout. Now this only works as long as you have the standard set to none. If you have one of the standards selected in here, this won't actually work. What we can do in 2011 with cosmetic threads is we can actually right click on that, we can configure the feature. In this case it would just be turning it on or off depending on the configuration. But you can also, if you have a design table, you can actually change the text of the callout as well. So looking at this part, we have an aluminum configuration and then the cast carbon steel configuration. And between the two of them, they have a different size for the callout there, for that thread callout. So if you look at it with the design table, it's $thread _ callout at cosmetic thread 1. And then that's going to allow you to make the changes to your cosmetic thread callouts. So a couple of nice enhancements there with your configurations and actually configuring your thread callout. If you deal with a lot of sheet metal parts, what we're going to want to do is take a look at this one. And if we look at the flat pattern, that's what it looks like. It's something new in sheet metal in 2011 where they're going to have this bounding box on the full extent of your bent or your flattened sheet metal part. What happens when you want to bring that into a drawing? If I come over here to my view panel, I'm just going to bring in my flat pattern. And if we want to show that, what we have to do is just take a look at the view itself. I'll expand that out, expand out your flat pattern, And you now have, in addition to the bend lines sketch, you have the bounding box sketch. Right click, we can show that, and then you can, if you need to, make take any dimensions from that as well. So that's a nice improvement to your drawings, and it makes it a little easier to deal with some of your sheet metal drawings here for your flat pattern. In addition to that, I can now right click on the flat pattern itself, come down to my annotations, and we have an option for cut list properties. I click on that, it's just going to create this note, and it's going to tell me your bounding box length, the width, the sheet metal thickness that you have, the area, the bounding box area blank, the weight, your material, and all this other information that you already have based on your model. So if you want to give your manufacturer a lot of information about it, you have that right there. The next portion of this webinar is going to be focusing on part and feature enhancements. Some of the things that we're going to see here are the new enhancements to equations, the different end conditions for Revolve, and we're going to check out the D-feature tool, which is new in 2011. We're going to see some changes to the scaling that we can do, and we'll also take a look at the helix. There have been two really nice and pretty powerful enhancements made to equations in 2011. The first one we want to look at is just with our equations. We have a couple of global variables right now, overall length of this plate, as well as what the side is going to be. Let me just show our equations here. We have 5 in total, and we have a couple of options in here that we didn't have before. The first one we're going to take a look at is over here on the right hand side. We now have an import as well as an export button. I'm going to just say export to begin with, and then you see the different equations that we have here, and we can say link to file. If I save that, I'm just going to leave it as that name, that's fine. We just exported that out, and as we did that, we can see the linked file here. What this does is it creates a text file with these equations inside of it. Now what can we do with that text file? Well, we can actually we can use that in other parts. So let me hit OK there, and let's open up a different one. With this one here, again, I'm going to just edit my equations, and this time I'm going to say import. And let me go find that. There we go, so we can see what it looks like. There's our imported equations there. You can see it's linked to that same file. So if you hit OK, it's going to, let me rebuild, it's going to change our overall part here. For the second portion of the equations here, we're going to take a look at the if statement. We can now add a little logic to our equations where we can create an if statement saying if this expression is true, then it's going to be whatever your true is, otherwise false, and it's just showing the kind of the syntax of it at the top there. For our part, we're going to look at basically a cylinder with chamfers on either end, and we're going to say the chamfer feature itself is going to be an if statement, so chamfer equals, if the length of the cylinder is less than ½ an inch, then you're going to suppress the chamfer, otherwise you're going to leave it unsuppressed. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. With our cylinder here, I want to take a look at the equations itself here. I'm just going to say add an equation. And based on what we just did, what we just saw with the PowerPoint, I want to create the equation itself. So to add the equation, to start it, I'm just going to say the chamfer is going to be on the left-hand side. I'm going to say that that equals an if statement. It's if and only if, that's why there's two I's in there. And it's going to be the length of the cylinder. So I'm just going to pull in that dimension itself. We're going to say if that is less than ½ an inch, then we can either type in suppress or they actually gave us buttons here, so it's a little easier. They must know that most engineers can't spell very well. And then after that, unsuppress. Then close out the parentheses, hit OK, and that's what we have for our equation. Now let's test that out a little bit here. Right now it's showing, so that's great. We know that the threshold was at half an inch, so let me put this to, let's say, 3/8 of an inch. If I update it, it goes away, the chamfers. If I bring that up, let's say just over half an inch, it now has the chamfers showing again. So you can see that there's a little bit of logic going into this now. So that's another nice improvement to the equations here, which I personally like quite a bit. Let's look at some of the global variables that we can do here, that we can change. If you use a design table for any of your configurations, you can now change the global variable itself within the design table. Let's do that. I'm just going to create a global variable based on my sheet metal parameters, my thickness. There we go. So if you look at it, our thickness is now 1/8 of an inch. If I want to insert our design table, the only thing I'm going to pull in is the thickness for it. But if you look at it, we now have the thickness, the default, I'm just going to change the name of that to 1/8, maybe the next one's 1/4. .3/16, so let's just put in those sizes there. There we go. Add those configurations, and that being our global variable, now that we can change it based on our design table, you can see that updating as we go between the different configurations. So a small thing, but it's something that makes design tables just more powerful. A small enhancement that we have for one of our standard features is with the Revolve feature itself. We're just going to start a Revolve here, and it's just an end condition, a couple of them that we have that are new. If you work with these with standard extrudes, you can hit the pull down for your end condition. And you've always had up to vertex and mid plane and all that stuff, but now we just have up to surface and offset from surface, which we never had before. If I just say up to surface and choose the surface I want my Revolve to go up to, you can see what that's going to look like there. I'm just going to go in the second direction. I'm going to say offset from surface with that one. I'm going to again choose the surface. It's just going to be on the other side though. Let's say 2 millimeters offset. You can kind of see what that's going to look like based on that. If I hit OK, it just creates a nice some nice geometry pretty quickly and easily. The only thing that you have to pay attention to is to make sure the surface that the profile is going up to completely envelops the profile of your shape there. If it doesn't, then it's not going to actually create the feature. It's going to fail out on you every time. You can now configure the part scale within your part. In years past, you didn't have this option at all, but you can, as long as you have the scale feature within your part to begin with, you can either do a non-uniform scaling using a design table, or you can use uniform scaling, and we show this right here on this slide. If you want to do the non-uniform, you can use the syntax shown on the screen, $x_access at the scale feature name, and you can do that for X, Y, and Z. That'll change your uniform to your non-uniform scaling. And then if you want to use the uniform scaling, all you have to do is put in the X-axis and then the same at scale feature name that you have there as well. There's a new way to show your helix inside of 2011. If you get into your helix spiral, you can define by, with a variable pitch now, you can define it by a height and revolution. Couldn't do that in years past. So let's kind of take a look at this a little more in depth. Let's say I want that to be, our pitch to be, say, 5 millimeters. Then the height at the second location is going to be 50. Revolution is 10. Let's say 150. Revolution is going to be 20. And then we also have 200. Now let's do 25. So if we look at it, it's changing the variable radius here quite nicely. The second improvement here is that they added these little tags here, similar to your variable radius fillet, where you have at each of those points, the 1, 2, 3, 4, and however many regions that you have, it's going to have your height, your revolution, your pitch, your diameter. So if you want to change any of that stuff, you can do it right from here, as well as over in your chart on the left-hand side. So you can use those flags for that as well. A brand new tool in 2011 is called a de-feature tool. This will allow you to send out your models or assemblies to different, to maybe a customer or vendor or something like that. Put it up on 3D Content Central, and it'll kind of dumb down your part. And we'll just kind of go through the process here. It's under your Tools pull down, and it's called de-feature. Once you click on that, you can select what features you want to keep. So maybe you have some sort of mounting features or something like that. In this case, I'm just going to grab that center hole. Hit the next button. It's going to remove any of the internal features here, which we don't really have too many. But if we want to remove more, we can just click inside of here, select the feature that we want to remove. You can also do faces as well. Once you do that, hit next, what it's going to do is kind of dumb down the model. So here's your original on the left. On the right hand side, it has the de-featured feature, and you can kind of see that there. So now you have the option to save the model as a separate file, publish the model to 3D Content Central, or you can just store the settings for future use inside your part here. I'm just going to say save the model as a separate file, and that's fine. I'll just save it as that. But what we see is the new part, the new file. It's just an imported body now. It's a dumb solid, so people aren't going to be able to take away maybe any any proprietary data. But if we go back to the original here, we now have a de-feature feature in our feature tree here. So you can see that if you want to make any changes to it, it's just like any other feature. You can just edit the feature here and then go through the process again. You can also delete it. You can save the results. You can upload it to 3D Content Central right from here as well. So all that information is inside of your base part, and then you can add in a little more, make changes to it anytime you want to. In addition to this, they do have a way of doing it in assemblies, but when we get to assemblies, we'll take a look at that as well. A little bonus material now. We have a couple of new things in surfaces. I just want to show real quick. Let's bring this right out here. If you want to create just a standard surface extrude, you can do that. Right now it's just some hollow sort of tube. We now have an option in here under the your direction 1. It says cap end. You can do that and then have the ends be capped from your part here. So maybe I'll put that out in a second direction, cap the other end, hit OK, and now you have a nice cylindrical surface. In addition to that, let's take a look at this one here. We can also do another extruded surface and just select a couple of faces that we want to extrude from. So I'm going to take this, it's a fairly complex face going around a couple of curves as well as a planar face. And what I'm going to do is extrude it off of there. You have to pick some sort of direction to extrude from. So I'm just going to say the front plane there. And then we can also, let's say, an inch is probably plenty for us here. So we can take a look at that, and it makes a nice extrusion based right off of those original faces there. Now I do have a split face going, or a split line going all the way across those 3 faces, so that's what's going to allow us to do that. It's going along that split line. A couple of options in here. You can do the delete original faces and knit result as well. If you turn those on, it should create a single surface based on the original, and it also deleted those original faces in there too. So you can kind of see the option there. Let's go back and edit the feature. Just like we just saw, we can also, in addition to that, we can also cap the end here, just like we tried with that cylindrical piece. If we do that, that's kind of what it's going to look like. So a couple of little enhancements to surfacing, but I think pretty powerful ones.